Welcome to the Path Podcast. It's April 17th, 2024. My name is Tani. I'm here with Auk. Auk, hey.
Hey, Tani.
Good to be here podcasting with you.
It is. It's good to be here with you, too. I had a really interesting sight on my way home. You ever see that? There's this Insta channel. It's like Nature is Metal or something.
Oh,
like
yeah.
that.
Heck yeah.
Right. Okay.
I like all those like kook slams and nature is I am really immature.
Right. And so I almost wanted to stop, but I had to get here to record. As I was cruising along my bike path, I saw these two crows like just swooping, right? Like cawing and swooping. It's like, what in the world are these crows doing? And then I'm like, oh, they must be fighting something. And then I look on the ground, and they're just kind of sitting there checking them out. Is a hawk. I didn't realize how big hawks can get. It's a good sized bird, and the beak on that thing, like that's like,
Yeah.
So I almost wanted to stop in video to see what was going to happen, right? Like, does hawk get pissed at the crow and just crows and take one down?
I think maybe the hawk tries to take the crow's babies and the crow's eggs or maybe the babies, and I think the crows try to fight them off.
Yeah, I could see that. But then I also thought on my way in on the ride this morning, I've been seeing a lot of, we call them Mr. Buns, a lot of rabbits on the trail in this one spot. And there's this stand of like maybe 4 or 5 giant like blue silver agaves. You know, they get out of control.
Yeah.
And I think there's a warren under there. And today I saw a family and the mom, the people family, and the mom was spreading like carrot greens all around the agave. I was like, oh, that's why they're here. People feed them. This afternoon, where that hawk was, he was right around the warren too. I was like, oh, man.
Nice. Did we ever talk about the local crows and Jeff and Geoff's relationship with them and Kim? And
I don't think we have.
Okay, so we have some local crows,
right?
And Geoff,
right,
likes to kind of have a relationship with them and feed them. He's really into like the macabre and like he kind of likes the crow vibe, you know?
Right, sure.
And Jeff started sometimes feeding the crows.
Oh, man.
And then Jeff started finding little trinkets that the crows had apparently left for him.
Oh, gifts,
Which is apparently a thing.
Whoa.
Yeah. But there's also speculation that that's Geoff messing with Jeff and leaving the trinkets.
What are some of the coolest trinkets that have been left?
Oh, like some little plastic, like a segment of like a Mardi Gras necklace or something, like some beads.
Oh, right.
Stuff like that. Just like
right.
shiny stuff. Stuff people would like, you know?
Okay. Stuff that a bird would think that a person would like. I got it. Okay. Oh, that's awesome. Anyways, shall we jump into some shop news?
So it's Sea Otter week. By the time the podcast airs, Sea Otter will have happened. And it seems like Sea Otter's more of a big deal this year than last year. Last year, a lot of brands were so caught up in kind of the doom and gloom of the industry that not a lot of people didn't attend. I think attendance was down for exhibitors and for racers and riders and everything.
Got it.
This year, we don't know yet because
Right.
it's starting tomorrow, but I feel like there's a lot more energy in terms of people just attending.
Yeah.
And this time there are a bunch of new products already
Right.
announced around Sea Otter, and
Right.
probably more will be, I would imagine.
First time that everyone kind of gets to see up close and talk.
Yeah, it's a tradition in the industry that new stuff comes out often around Sea Otter to be shown for the first time at Sea Otter.
Right.
It's almost like it's a race, but it's almost like a trade show as well.
Right. And that's shifted in the past 15 to 20 years, I'd say.
Well, it already was kind of like a trade show, and then Interbike kind of went away,
Right.
and it became the only option for that kind of stuff in North America, really, as far as I know.
Right.
I mean, there's smaller shows,
Right.
like the Cabda, and
It's a cooler location too. Monterey, heck yeah.
It is, and watching the slalom there is kind of kind of a rite of passage as a mountain biker. I feel like it's super fun and cool and kind of one of those kind of memories that you won't forget.
Right.
I feel like
I've never been.
maybe we should go sometime.
Yeah. Maybe we should plan next year.
It's pretty for me. It's the course itself is so tame for a downhill course.
Right.
The slalom course is pretty rad.
Right.
So
Yeah, I've seen some video of that.
With that being said, we have a lot of exciting new stuff to talk about, product wise.
Yeah, for sure. I don't know if we even mentioned it last week, but yeah, Fox, right?
So Fox has announced a new dropper post. With it's cool.
Yeah.
I think they addressed a lot of the things that people found challenging about the transfers. Are well regarded and respected post and solid, but sometimes it needed nitrogen recharges to come up quickly,
Right.
and the rebuild is pretty extensive and expensive.
Right.
Doesn't need it all the time, but it is an extensive and expensive rebuild. And like we do that rebuild here, but most shops don't. You need kind of a lot of tooling to do it,
Right.
and a nitrogen regulator, and so the new Fox transfer is a more traditional, more like a one-up type cartridge. It's more similar. I'm not saying it's the same. Adjustable height. Remember on the podcast when I said on the podcast, probably in, I don't know, 2017 or something, that as soon as someone makes a dropper post that can be adjusted and travel, we're all going to buy, it's going to sell so well.
Yeah.
And One Up has totally taken over the dropper post
For sure, because they can, right?
Because they did that.
Yeah.
I mean, they did some other smart stuff too.
Right. Right.
But the new Fox dropper post, you can do that without removing the post from the bike. All you got to do is unthread the collar, which I think is cool.
That is very cool.
Because it's a pain to pull the post out of the bike and disconnect the cable sometimes and everything. And really kind of even above. It's going to bring that. It's going to reduce the time it takes to do it, and it's going to bring it into the tool and skill world of way more riders.
For sure. For sure. And up to 240 millimeters to travel.
Yeah.
That's huge.
Less overall length than before, still not quite as short as One Up if you look at the Pink Bike article.
Okay.
Especially, and if you include the actuator and everything.
Right. Right.
But still great that they reduced their overall lengths.
Yep.
And also reduced the collar height.
Right.
So they did a lot of cool things with that post. And I think it's going to be easy to maintain, easy to keep working well. Fox people came out and talked to us about it, and it sounds rad.
Awesome.
And then
I would love to sit in on one of those someday.
Yeah, it's a quick side note. We've had really cool visitors from Shimano every day this week. It's super fun talking to them and hearing their perspective and hearing which questions they ask and stuff.
Oh, right,
it's really cool. Thanks, Shimano, for coming by. People from Shimano.
For sure.
I believe I don't want to mispronounce anyone's name, but I understand that this woman who came by was the head of design for Shimano.
Oh my gosh.
Not just one part,
the head of the design. That is.
And she's worked her way up. She was cool. She asked a lot of really interesting questions. They asked me about crank length. I thought that was interesting. Yeah, we had an interesting conversation about that.
That's fantastic.
But back to Fox. They redesigned their forks. All their dampers are redesigned and renamed. And it's not just a rename. They actually changed the dampers.
Yep. There's some good information out there. I mean, you guys got the inside scoop for sure. And even just on the interwebs, there's a lot of good information out there, I think.
Yeah. When you push a fork really hard, sometimes it seems like it gets a little overwhelmed.
Mm-hmm.
They say that they have this pressure equalization feature in the new damper that helps responsiveness over the damper.
Oh, interesting.
That's going to help, I think, with that type of experience.
Right.
The damper that they used to call, let's see, I always get my nomenclature screwed up with Fox, but the top shelf Enduro damper, it's now just called a Grip X2.
Right.
And the old damper had less shims by quite a bit. Mm-hmm. I think it was 7 versus 16 or something like that. I was reading about it and I was
Right.
like, okay, and a bigger base valve and just generally seems more tunable
That right.
and maybe still also better movement. So that sounds good. It all
Yeah,
sounds
no,
good.
yeah.
And the riders who have ridden it speak highly of it.
Yeah, that sounds interesting. And I thought I was seeing that it's retrofittable.
I believe it is. Yeah.
So
I'm mostly sure it is. And
yeah, that'd be cool. That'd be awesome. Makes me want to try a Fox fork. Do I have any Fox forks right now? I do have a 36.
And if it's an improvement over the current 36, even a little bit, I mean, the current 36 is fantastic.
Right. That is true. That's why I bought it.
Also from Fox, there's a new RaceFace chainring that I thought was pretty cool. It's a carbon carrier with steel
teeth.
So light and stiff, long wearing.
Right. Sounds like be good for high torque situations. Actually, any situation, I guess.
Remember back in the day, Shimano had a middle ring that was like a composite carrier with, I think, steel or titanium, maybe even titanium on the XTR teeth.
Right.
I think
This is a throwback to that.
It kind of reminds me of that. I think it's a good idea.
Yeah.
Back then, too, we had shifting ramps on front chain rings, and those carbon shifting ramps were really quiet.
Right.
Smooth.
Yeah, that sounds actually, I'd like to actually explore that. RaceFace steel teeth with a carbon carrier.
Yeah. Yeah.
I wonder if you match that to, man, you could have a really long lasting drivetrain if you used a SRAM chain on something like that. You know,
Right.
like XO or XX chain.
It's true.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
Auk is referencing this reality that XO and XX chains seem to get somewhere between like 2 and 3 and infinity more wear life than every other chain.
Right.
Times.
Right. I still can't believe, I'll put my chain stretch on my XX and XO chains, and
Which tool do you use?
the
It has a arm or like a thing that swings back and forth and shows you a percentage.
no, I use the other one.
Is it a Pedro's with 3
Yep.
prongs on it, and you use the 3-prong side?
Yep.
Yeah, I think that's the only way I've ever been able to measure wear for the most part on an XO or XX chain with the 3 points of measurement.
Right.
And even then, like sometimes like 5,000 miles and you can't really measure anywhere.
Yeah, I'm like, I throw that thing on, I'm like, maybe. I mean, it's possible I'm doing something wrong.
No, those chains have amazing wear cycles, and there's documentation online to verify this too.
Yep.
We've seen some people do some like home tests.
Right. So yeah, that sounds great.
What I found interesting too is that in those tests, the chains that got like Shimano chains had less drag. So maybe a little bit of a trade-off there.
Right.
Did you see the new? You know Digit Bikes, our friend Tim.
Yep.
Did you see he has a new bike?
No, I did not.
It looks pretty rad.
Yeah.
We don't sell that, but this I think dovetails into one of our listener questions
listener
really nicely.
Listener question.
We can circle back on that.
Okay.
No, it's the Digit analog trail bike, 128 rear, 140 front, and it uses the same
shock.
Yeah, the shock's
Rear
inside
shock.
the top tube.
Yep.
So I think
Our friend.
Tim.
Yep. But
Also,
our friend Jeff rides a Digit.
Yep, Jeff. We talked about Jeff
White?
recently
Yeah,
on the show.
Right, exactly.
Yep. He does. He loves it.
Yeah, for sure.
And he's had a lot of nice bikes, including a super, super pimped out Ellsworth Ed.
Oh gosh, you are right.
Or I think it was an Ed.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm almost positive it was an id.
Yeah.
There's like, man, he and Winston and Joel
Yeah.
had the ids. Was
Those
it a
were-
California ids?
Do you remember what the head angle was on that bike?
Oh, I don't know.
I think I do.
Okay.
And it was if I remember correctly, it was like a 150-ish travel bike.
Yeah.
And I think 26-inch wheels. I think we were building them up around 26 pounds regularly.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
Aluminum frames. And they were some of the first kind of longer travel bikes that both were light enough to pedal around, but also the suspension actually moved.
Right. Right. Exactly.
Because in the early days of bike suspension, a lot of the suspensions were so oversprung and overdamped, and just they barely moved.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because they were so, I guess they really were worried about efficiency, and but that suspension really moved and absorbed bumps.
Right.
But I'm pretty sure it was a 70-degree head
That's
angle.
what I didn't want to say it because I was like, no, that can't be. But yeah, I would affirm that.
And I also think that was generally considered like,
pretty
well, it's not 71.
right. Decently slack.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. You aren't kidding.
Yeah.
Man, yeah. So, anyways, yeah, that's cool. The new bike coming out, Digit Analog Trail Bike.
Yeah.
That's great. So we'll have to remember to come back to bikes that the path doesn't sell question.
Other shop news: Women's Wednesday. Next one that will be after this podcast airs will be May 1st. It's every other Wednesday. The after work ride, the next one after this podcast will be March 2nd. It's every other Thursday at 5:30.
Yep.
And the Dawn Patrol ride is every other Tuesday.
Yeah.
So,
And the 5:30 ride. I keep saying it. I think maybe I'll try to get out there because we've been riding after work at 5:30.
yeah, it's nice.
Yeah,
Get a little sunset ride.
for sure. Yeah, like it is now a little after like 7:15 and we could still be riding.
Yeah.
This is definitely, we could be descending on this at this time.
You wouldn't want to get a flat without a light.
That is true.
And you also want just not trying to be the like, and don't forget to follow the rules. But most of the parks do close at sunset, so
That is true.
just be aware of the rules if you don't want to get in trouble or
That
yelled
is
at or
true.
whatever.
That is true.
Although I think the range. I think for the most part, if you're leaving the park at sunset on your way out, the rangers are cool with you.
Yeah.
Sky Park Women's International Day, May 4th.
Yep.
Over the Hump starts April 30th. Register now to save on entry fee.
Well, by the time this airs, yeah, register now.
Yep.
It'll still be a week away when the show airs.
There's an Oaks Trail Work Day coming up at Santiago Oaks.
In May and June. 2
Yep.
days.
Two work days. Yep. May 24th and June 21st.
Yep. And that's a lot of those trails right now could use some brushing.
I imagine that's going to be a lot about the mustard popping up. And
Yep.
you can sign up for that with OCMTBA
Yep.
on their website, OCMTBA.
Fantastic.
I want to thank the Laguna Canyon Foundation for all the trail work they do. They're doing a trail work on April 20th, which will already have happened on this when this show airs, but
Yep.
there's another one coming up on Meadows on May 4th.
On Meadows. Okay.
And you can check out the trail works on the Laguna Canyon Foundation website and sign up for them there. You got to sign up ahead of time.
I wonder, May 4th, mostly brushing out there maybe? I haven't ridden Meadows in a long
I haven't
time.
ridden Meadows in a while, so I don't know what it needs, but that's what time of year we're in. I mean, to me, trail work is for sure a seasonal behavior.
Yep.
So you have dirt work that you do in the wet season and
Yep.
when the ground is wet, and you really don't want to bother trying to do dirt work if the ground's not wet, I don't think.
Right.
And then you have brushing, which happens in the spring and early summer
Yep.
for us in this area.
Yeah, for sure.
Did you see? I saw on Pink Bike an entity called Dirty Sixer crowdfunded a 32-inch and a 36-inch bike.
What?
Yeah, they say the 32-inch bike is for 6'6" riders around there, and they say the 36-inch wheeled bike is for about 7-footers. And
Go Reggie Miller.
right, I sort of agree with them that these taller individuals are going to benefit from these
Yeah.
bigger wheel sizes.
Yep.
I am not sure that you need to be 6'6" to enjoy 32-inch wheels. And my thinking is, we've talked about it on the show a little before. My thinking is pretty simple. I won't go all the way. We've been through it before,
Right.
so I'll just, when you're really young, you start off with 12-inch wheels, and then you go through a bunch of wheel sizes between like 4 feet tall and 5 feet tall.
Yep.
And then from roughly 5 feet. A lot of people around 5 feet tall and less are still on 26.
Right.
And then I do see some people in the like shorter end of 5 feet still wanting a 27.5-inch front wheel, but not often.
Right.
And then I would say pretty much everyone from about 5'4" and up either is on dual 29 or on 29 front and 27.5 rear. So if we're going new wheel size for kids, we're going new wheel size like every 2 inches roughly. Every 3 inches, every 4 inches maybe.
Right.
And as we scale up, an inch is a smaller percentage of the overall, so maybe the number of inches changes a little bit. But like, if between 4'6" and 5 feet, you're for sure going from 24 to 26. And if you've had kids, you see how natural of a transition that is, and how 24 would be silly for the bigger kid and everything. And then that 5 footer gets 26, and then they get 27 when they graduate to like an adult small, and then or maybe 29 even. And then if you're at my height, I feel like at around 5'7", 5'8", I feel like for sure dual 29 or mixed wheel are both good choices. And I never would want to put a smaller front wheel on my bike ever. And so from that height, or in many cases shorter than that, people like 29 all the way up
to like, if we have 6'4" friends and they're on the dual 29, that's a whole foot taller than.
My theory is someone who's 6 feet or 6'1", about 4 inches or 5 inches or 5.5 inches or 6 inches taller than me.
Right.
I bet you they'd benefit from a 32-inch wheel.
I could believe that.
And I wouldn't be that surprised if I liked a 32-inch front wheel on certain situations, or maybe if I liked 32-inch wheels on a hardtail for cross country or something.
Right.
And that's what people said. And of course, that's what I said at first about 29 is maybe I would like that on a hardtail for cross country.
Right. And then
so if I'm saying that now about 32,
maybe the mullet. What do you think about the mullet? Instead of being like 32.29, it'd be 32.27.
I just want to revisit one thing before we go back. Sure. I mentioned that as the rider gets bigger, an inch is a smaller percentage of everything, but also the percentage of change if you're really going to play that, then you got to play it on the other end too and give the bigger percentage of change in wheel size growth, right? Like
right.
Or bigger, make it a percentage change, not an inch change. Right. And then you get really big wheels.
Right. Yeah, that's right. That's a good point.
I almost feel like that could cut both ways.
Right.
I'm fascinated by the idea of wheels bigger than 29 in our sport, and I think we're probably going to see them someday, and I'm just going to keep talking about it.
Yep. And it's going to take more than just WTB.
I can't wait till people start calling them circus wheels and
because that's all it's like
wagon wheels. And I can't wait to have the exact same conversation we had about 29.
Yeah, totally.
I can't wait for people to pick a wheel size and be a D about it again.
Right. Again, Eric with a K might come back out.
EW?
Right.
I think he's come around to tubes. Or tubeless. So we got. I was talking about trail work before, and I forgot. Also, I wanted to thank Keith and the Warrior Society for all the work they've done on Holy Gym and Trabuco.
Yeah.
And Brian and Drew and Jeff and Val went and rode Holy Gym up over the peak and did Joplin recently.
Was that with Drew?
Yeah.
Was the other Eric with a K there?
Maybe. I'm not sure.
I think he was there too. Yeah.
And that ride looked awesome. They had like crusts of snow on the top of Joplin and everything.
Yeah, for
sure. Drew's from Austin, and he kept saying, "This is mountain biking." But some of the comments on the reel we posted about that really made me realize a lot of people don't know Holy Gym is open. So
Holy Gym is open.
Holy Gym's open, and I think it's running pretty good.
Yeah.
And Trabuco's not, but it may be again someday, and it's at least brushed, and thanks to the Warrior Society and Keith.
Yeah. That's a huge amount of work that they've put into that.
Isn't it?
Man.
Yeah.
But you can, like I think you're saying, if you start from somewhere like the Live Oak shop, or you can, Holy Jim up to Joplin, down Joplin, out the luge, and then back down to Live Oak.
Yep.
So,
You could park at Live Oak if you want to do that.
Yep.
No one's gonna raise an eyebrow out of car with bike racks on the Live Oak parking lot.
Yep. Or drive to the end of.
And for customers who don't know what we're talking about, the path has a location on Trabuco Canyon Road, which is also Live Oak Canyon Road, and it's pedaling distance from the dirt road that you would go up to get to Holy Jim.
Right.
And some people like to drive up that dirt road and then park at the base of Holy Jim, but I would say if you're gonna end up, usually I think that's if you're going up and down Holy Jim.
That is.
If you're gonna have to make the full loop anyway, you might as well get that out of the way.
Yeah, I agree with that. You don't want to end on that.
Right.
Yeah. And people used to drive that because they do Holy Jim to Trabuco.
Right.
That was a pretty popular loop.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, that's fantastic.
Yeah. Have you ridden that since it's been opened?
I have not. I heard you. Didn't you ride?
I
part
just
of
checked
it?
out the very bottom part of it.
Right.
Yeah. We rode a trail I haven't ridden in a while lately, and I thought it was just as fun as I remembered, but it's changed a little bit. Have you ridden Car Wreck lately?
Oh my gosh! Wait, I think I was with you.
You were with me, maybe. Yeah.
But I have ridden it. I have been riding it. I've probably ridden it sort of regularly. I didn't ride it a lot this winter until you and I had ridden it. But I just felt like every time I rode it, it was getting a little bit chunkier, gnarlier.
Yeah. I think most of the top sections are fairly similar to what they were. I love, when you first enter that trail and you're just kind of moving along, not super, you're kind of going fast from just carrying speed. It's not super downhill. And it's just kind of like, it's kind of easy, but it's about to start. Right. You're just kind of feeling the rhythm and getting it going.
Right.
And then there's that little kind of like steep drop into the hard left.
Yes.
And you kind of G out into that, and it turns flat ground almost into a berm, and like it's on. The trail's going after that, right?
Yeah, totally.
Like, and then all those it's like a left turn into a right turn, and then a bunch of chunk and a steep chute over and over again.
Yes.
And you can always unweight out of that if you're really moving, right?
Right.
Unweight out of that right turn and smooth out of them to the entry into this.
And
feels so good.
And there's I feel like in those high speed areas, man, there's several different lines you can take.
Oh yeah.
And depending on the lines that you take, a couple of them, it looks like you should be on that line, and it pulls you off into like the bushes into like
as you get further and further, that kind of effect keeps happening. Kind of like that. It's a little bit of the same thing, same move over and over, but there's deeper and deeper new ruts. And then the last rock garden,
oh my
those
gosh,
rocks seem like they've grown like 3 feet.
I think so.
There's so much dirt missing.
Yeah, because I came behind. I was the last one on the ride. We did it, and so I'm cruising down, and all of a sudden I sort of see I think it might have been your wheel. It was either the first or second person's wheel, and I was like, whoa, they must really be like checking up here. And I'm glad you guys did, because you guys kind of went through, and the person before me, he kind of pulled off, and I was like, oh my gosh, I'm glad I saw their wheel, because
that's technical.
That's technical. Right.
I feel like I remember charging that on a hardtail at speed.
Yeah. I mean, it was never that chunky, because now I almost feel like there's at the top, one of the entry features, I almost feel like it's almost not rollable.
You know what though? On a 26-inch hardtail, or on a 26-inch hardtail with a 70-degree head angle, and who knows, like the wheels are practically touching each other. The wheelbase is so short.
Right.
It's a whole different riding style through there. And I think we were like more treating those big rocks like moguls, like bouncing off them and snaking through them.
Yeah.
And on the enduro bike, you more want to like blast over the tops of them.
Right. So maybe we've been blasting over the top of them, but I don't think we can do that.
I think There was a time when you sort of could.
Yes, no, I agree. I totally agree with you.
I don't think it's just me getting older and more timid. I think the dirt.
I
dirt
totally
is missing
agree.
and rocks
Yeah.
are bigger.
Oh my gosh.
But
Yeah,
I still, you know what I'm talking about? How the riding style through there used to be more like
yes, yes,
like
yeah, like not skating, but yeah,
more like skiing moguls, like
Yeah.
bouncing off the edges, bouncing off the rocks and
Right.
snaking through them.
right, right. But I feel like if you tried that now, there would just be massive consequences, and you just
It seems gnarly.
right. I think the first you did this, you would just be over.
Do you think that car will always be there at the bottom? It has to have been there for like 50 years or something, right?
Yeah, yeah.
It's pretty cool. That
I wonder if
there.
it's just like in the state of arrested decay now. Like,
Right.
it's I don't know. I mean, I haven't taken pictures, and I'm sure it's more decayed now than it was in the past 20
I was
years.
thinking about this, like if we had any old pictures and see like the
Is
changes.
it more decayed now
Yeah.
than it was now?
It
Then?
must have been quite an adventure getting it there.
Oh my gosh. I wonder how they did get it there.
I
You think
think,
so? They
that
pushed it up?
bottom part was a road. I think it was once a road.
Oh, like maybe the bottom part coming up? Or you think did they get it coming up, or do you think they got it coming down?
I almost think that might be old Mathis, and it was a road.
Oh my god.
That's my theory.
So the trail that has turned into a single track in Chunk and Nar used to be
The road.
The road.
Maybe. Maybe.
wow. Yeah, okay, I could see that. And then as it's just totally
I don't know.
has become a single track Nar, because it is definitely chunkier now.
Yeah.
And when I got up to that, it'd be interesting to see. So when you rode that, which line did you take?
I think I was most like towards the left.
Yeah.
It was an old line that I remembered that wasn't
right.
really there anymore, and it was full like bucking Bronco,
Yeah.
like front wheel buck, back wheel buck, like
Yeah.
almost stall and go over the bars, like
Yeah.
old school drama.
I think I was a little bit to the right of what I thought, what I envisioned was the old line. You know, as I think actually in the past and the recent, I have been riding a little bit further left, because I think that used to be the line. A little
Kind
bit
of like middle left,
Yeah.
not far left.
right. And I felt like I was higher up than I normally was, and a little bit further to the right. But I was like, the guy in front of me checked up, and he was standing there looking at it, trying to figure it out. And I was like, if I stop now, I'm not gonna keep going. So I just
It's funny, you don't hear people talking about that trail very much.
I
You,
wonder why.
you hear people talking about a lot of the off the map trails going down to the
Yeah.
133 more.
Yep. I feel like that one in the past year has definitely elevated itself in technical riding.
It's always been a really, really fun trail that's like definitely pushing the limits of intermediate too, though. Like,
Right. But I feel like with even some of those mid sections that we were talking about, I feel like those have gotten more challenging at speed. When we were riding, the guy in front of me,
Yeah.
he pulled this thing where, he got a little bit sideways this way, and then he's a moto rider, so he kind of like did a little bit of drift this way, and then swung it around this way. And as he swung it around, he got pretty sideways this way, and I was like, oh no. And the sound that his bike made, I was sure he crashed, because he was like, here the bike made this horrendous like crank, and then he was back off. I was like, oh my gosh, that's amazing.
Yeah.
So, yeah, and then that bottom section now is something else.
Yeah. I think another ride we did recently, I forgot the name of the trail, but that trail, it just made me think of like what one of my current main favorite ride fantasies is. And it's car wreck kind of has this a little bit. Just what it made me think of it is, but not quite as much as what I'm really talking about.
Right.
It's when it's pretty chunky, but not chunky enough to be a real problem.
Right.
And it's steep enough that you're getting pretty good acceleration if you're off the brakes.
Yep.
And there's turns in those conditions.
Yes.
So you're like trying to brake in challenging braking conditions in order to lay it hard into a turn
Right.
that might have some bumps in it.
Right.
And then the next section's and then you're gonna bounce into a steep section that's maybe straight for a minute and bump,
And then
even
it's going to do
steeper
this, and then at the bottom is going to do kind of the same thing.
And maybe your brakes will smell at the bottom.
And I think our brakes did smell at the bottom.
Yeah.
I know they did.
Everyone's brakes did, and that was pretty awesome.
Yeah.
It's not every ride that you get to smell your brakes.
Yeah. From top to bottom. That
Especially
trail.
from like a single track that's like 10 inches wide.
Right. Yeah, and from top to bottom. And I like that type of trail I enjoy too, because there's this mental focus where it's this level of focus that you get into when the trail is sustained in that way.
Yeah.
And it's different than when it's just a bunch of like series of big features.
Right.
Right. These trails that are a series of big features, it's like supreme focus. And then you're like, okay, supreme focus. And then you're okay. But this type of trail, it's this heightened level.
You're just locked in.
Yeah. The whole way. Right.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a good trail. And we don't ride that trail a lot. And so it was kind of like a newish trail. A renewed trail.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've really been enjoying the Wednesday rides.
Did you see pole filed BK? I think.
Oh
you
my gosh, I
mentioned that.
did see that.
That's crazy, weird, sad.
Yeah.
Bummer. Sorry. I hope everyone lands
on their feet.
Lands well.
Yeah.
From that.
Yeah. That's a really, hopefully, some of what they're doing move things forward and. Yeah, regardless of how that turns out.
I do think the whole two pieces glued together idea is going to not die with them.
Yeah.
I think there's a future for that concept.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We were talking a lot before the show about the new Trans X Advanced 29er.
Oh, man.
A lot of name. Right there.
Yeah. I mean, Giant has a way of naming their trances with a lot of name.
Yeah.
So, yeah, this is the new Trans Advanced X or Trans Advanced X SX, depending on which configuration you buy it in. The Trans Advanced X is a 2929, and the Trans Advanced X SX is a mixed wheel.
It checks off a lot of boxes.
Yeah, I mean,
frame storage, no headset routing.
Yep, and
it's light. It's like I think the one we weighed that we're looking at is right about 30 pounds.
Yeah, and it's
which makes it a pound lighter than my Switchblade with a comparable build.
Right. 150 rear, I think. I think that's what it is.
I think it's 140 rear, 150 front, if I remember correctly.
Yep. But I think the SX is 150.
That could be
because they just do it with changing the spacers in the shock.
And it's got a 3-position flip chip for the bottom bracket height, which also affects head angle.
Yep, and it also affects reach.
And
so
reach.
The lower it is, the shorter the reach.
I think that this is one of those we need to explain the geometry chart to the riders because I was confused by the geometry chart, and I think we figured it out before the show.
Yeah.
So the geometry chart shows 3 reaches for every size.
Yep.
And those reaches are the different reaches in the neutral reach flip chip position in the various bottom bracket heights.
Correct.
We're pretty sure.
Yeah.
And the reason we're pretty sure is 2 things. One, they're not exactly 5 millimeters apart, which they would need to be for them to be the plus or minus 3 reaches. Correct. So really the bike has 9 reaches.
That's so good.
Right?
Like that's mind-boggling.
There's 3 bottom bracket heights, which all affect reach, and then there's a neutral and a +5 and a -5 on the headset. Which is, have we seen that before?
I've only seen it on like those on the pro downhillers with the Custom King headsets.
I think it's really cool.
I think it's super cool. I've always thought that concept is cool, and to see it on a production bike and the execution of it, I think it's amazing. So, yeah. So in the if you're running a mixed wheel size, and on a medium and the low, it might be like 440 something, 445, or maybe 447.
Well, and counting the mixed wheel options, there's 27 reach numbers.
Yeah.
Because there's the original 9 times 3 or no, sorry. 18.
18.
Because
But
the original 9, and then wheel size also changes.
Yeah. And what I think is interesting is, that the head angle in the neutral is like 63 and a half or 63.6 or something like that.
If you mixed wheel it.
If you mix wheel it.
Right. Because as a dual 29, the head angle is 64.8 in neutral.
Right.
64.4 in low.
Right. So I've always thought as low as possible all the time, and maybe I'd end up there on this bike as well. But you could run, in the high mixed wheel setting, you still have like a 63.9 head angle. And so that would be a longer reach. And then if you use the plus minus on the headset, you could get that even longer.
Yeah.
So
I don't think too many people are going to be running anything other than high with the mixed wheel setup.
Yeah.
And the reason is it's still going to be really, really low. It drops you down like quite a bit, like 3/4 of an inch.
But if you're running 155,
well, the bottom bracket doesn't go down that much. The axle does. So.
Right.
Yeah, it's also that it affects the seat angle.
Yeah, it does. There's a whole bunch of things going on there.
It affects the seat angle, and the seat angle gets to start to get pretty slack if you do that. I bet.
Right. But yeah, that adjustable reach in the headset is I think that's a really
so smart.
Oh my
so
gosh,
cool
right?
And so helpful.
Yeah.
And it looks really good, and I like how on the non-drive side there's no logos, and on the drive side there's a small silver giant on this chainstay and a small silver trans by the top tube. So it has a very kind of, like expensive stuff, they don't plaster the logos all over it unless they do.
Right.
Like
right.
Kind of like
that's kind of like that.
like the lower key.
I do too.
Vibe. Really good lines.
Yes.
Even like the shaping around like where the top tube, it's kind of like the bone lines with the head tube and the top tube and down tube junction there are cool, rad. They look functional and they look like form and function meet well there.
For sure. And trunnion mounted rear shock.
And I bet those new carbon rims from Giant are really good. The original the previous generation carbon rims from Giant were really good.
Yeah.
And I bet these are too.
Yeah. These almost look a little lower profile, so I don't know if they're going for like a little less stiffness than the
I would
previous
think.
version,
I think that's what I would have changed about the old ones.
Yeah. Yeah.
And if you didn't go from stiffer in 2018 to more compliant in 2024, you're just not listening to riders.
Right.
Because riders were asking for stiffer wheels in 2018.
Right.
And now they're asking for more compliant wheels.
Right. Yeah. Careful what you ask for, you might get it. Like really ramped up the stiffness on them.
The original flexiness of 29 compared to 26 was kind of weird for some people.
Right. Right.
And trying to keep it light and stiff, it was a weird time.
Right. Right.
I think now we've come to just accept a heavier weight.
Right.
Too.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I am really excited. I've been thinking. I've had that Trans Advance SE.
Yep.
For a couple of years now, and I've been trying to think about what bike, the pivot that you have is exciting and what have you. This bike might actually be
the one for you.
Might be the one.
This is the one.
This is the one.
You got to borrow my Switchblade because I think you need to try that reach number. And this is a little bit shorter reach.
It is shorter.
Not much. A little bit. Well, let's see. 460 in the neutral position for a medium. I want to say that, so it's 456, 460, and 464. You could make that 461, 465, and 469.
Yeah.
Actually, I think that is as long as my bike.
Yeah.
Very close, if not as long.
You can have 461 with a 64.4 head angle. Yep. I wonder what like the bottom bracket and everything like that. It'd be interesting. Maybe after the show we could pull a pivot and the new Giant here together.
They're sitting there right next to each other.
Oh my gosh. Yep. That's okay.
That's okay.
We'll check it after. That is exciting. But you know what? Oh gosh. And right now, sales, put on the sales hat. 18-month no interest and purchases over $1,000 through May 31st.
Yep. That should help.
That should help.
Yeah.
So through Synchrony as well.
Yep.
So
took a guy's Trek Marlin on trade-in the other day. We take trade-ins. I like to remind people.
A Trek what?
Trek Marlin 5. It was a little scratched up. We gave him $125. He was stoked.
Wow.
It's like a $500-$600 bike at retail.
Right,
it's a few years old.
Right.
Like sold it for $250, $225. Nice. I think we sold it for $225.
Oh, okay. Oh man. Okay.
We had to do like a tune-up on it and stuff too.
Right.
So it's not. The point is we
it's the service.
We help the person
exactly
get a bike out of their garage.
Totally.
And it was borderline. I almost like half the time that bike would maybe just get donated to the local donations. I like the bicycle tree.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, as long as we're doing our little advertisement stuff. We just lowered those ransom e-bikes to $54.99.
Oh my gosh.
That's a Bosch motor, XT4 pop brakes, XT SLX 12, like $54.99. It's got a Zeb on it. It's a nice 180 travel enduro bike.
Gosh.
That's the newest Bosch system, smart system.
Right. Those
Crazy.
those bikes look hot.
And we had we had some 2022 scores left over.
Mm-hmm.
We noticed that some of our competitors were selling those for crazy low. And so even though they don't have all the sizes we have and everything, we just decided to do it. And so now we have Carbon Score muscle bikes as low as $2,800.
Oh man.
And Carbon Score e-bikes as low as $4,300. And those are both like still pretty nice bikes.
Yeah.
Like good suspension still.
Yeah.
We're not talking any like Rock Sox 35 or anything like that. Like not that there's even anything wrong with that fork.
Right.
But like this is not that bottom on the e-bike. That's an SLX drivetrain.
That's excellent.
And a Zeb fork.
Yeah.
For $4,300 and a carbon frame, like out of hand.
Oh my gosh.
So yeah, that's really good. And that's kind of just some examples of just what there's still a lot of really good. The new 2024 stuff is coming in, and like the industry didn't make too much of it.
Right.
Like Giant's running out, Pivot's running out.
Yeah.
Giant didn't make a bunch of those trans advanced frames. Like we got one, and I think they're out of them.
Oh wow.
And they're going to get one. They say they're going to get one more shipment, and that's it.
Right.
So there's still a lot of deals to be had on 2022 and in some cases 2023 stuff.
Yep.
But there's also some really cool new 2024 stuff. So that's part of why.
So, get the word out, because all these smoking deals, you're not going to find them here at the new shop at 649B.
Right. You got to go to our original location.
Right. So get the word out about the Path Outlet shop.
Thanks, Auk. I want that shop to succeed. I think the community needs something like that.
Yeah.
And hopefully the word gets out soon enough that there's a place you can go and buy mountain bike, a whole store full of mountain bike stuff that's on sale. And you still get the premium level of service. You can return it at any of our stores. You can get a free tune-up on your bike at any of our stores, all that.
Can we do a barbecue there?
Yes. I love barbecuing.
Let's do a barbecue there.
Yeah,
like a community event at the outlet,
That's a great idea.
So that'd be awesome.
I was talking. I'm shifting gears again real
Totally.
fast.
Pivoting.
No segue.
Yeah,
I was
totally.
I was talking to Drew at the shop today, and he was talking, and like Jeff and Drew and I were talking, and we were like looking at some different custom builds that are going on around the shop and stuff, and commenting, and it's like, some people are doing like the highlight color, like purple hubs, headset spacers, stem, brakes, like it's like nipples, like a lot, right? And it looks cool,
Right.
But Drew was like, that's kind of overkill. Like he thinks it's better if it's like a couple things, like lower, just kind of more low key.
Right. I have a purple headset on my Mooch.
And I was thinking about that, and I was thinking about my bikes, and you know what I like? I like that like thrown together look. Like I woke up like this.
Right.
So like on my relay right now, it's a blue bike, and I have this wheel that I wanted to use that has an orange front hub.
Yes.
And then a DT 350 rear hub that doesn't match it.
Right.
And there's no other orange on the bike.
That is cool. And blue and orange, it's actually kind of a cool.
And then I have another highlight color, which is some like bright slime green on the bike.
Let me see.
That's also not all over. It's just the grips, and I think the saddle.
I think the grips.
Bottom.
Like, is it the whole grip? That's
yeah.
Oh yeah.
So, and it did just kind of come together that way, but each part did get held up. Like, that works.
Okay.
I like that.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
So it's like kind of like I had these parts in my garage, like, and it's a true. It's also the truth is just I had a front wheel with a zip motor rim on the orange i9 hub in my garage, and I just wanted to use it because I wanted to run the zip motor rim.
Right.
And then I had a wheel from it, and I have the rear wheel that matches that, but it's a 29er, and I wanted to run a mixed wheel.
My bikes are kind of coming together.
I have
like
another zip moto wheel with a DT 350, so I just kind of comes together. But I think if both hubs were orange, it almost wouldn't look as cool.
Yeah, I agree with that.
But there's that you got to be careful, and you got to be you almost have to pull off that you. What I would say is, like, if the front hub is orange and the back hub is purple, like that's kind of the same idea, but it's kind of not.
Right.
Especially if you do it on purpose.
Oh man. Yeah. I mean, I don't see too many bikes around that are like have all the same like highlights.
We used to do that so much.
Yeah, right.
Like, we're going to build you a Turner 5-spot or a Turner RFX that's going to have pick your color of King hubs and headset, and then we're going to do
the seat collar, like the salsa seat collar is going to match it.
But you know what? Even back then, some people would be like, "Can I have red nipples with my red King hubs?" And we'd be like, "How about just 2 red ones at the valve?"
Yep.
Because that kind of like it's kind of the same idea. Exactly. Like not so much, just a little.
Right. I think you guys did that on one of my bikes.
And of course, people who wanted all red nipples, they got them.
Right. But, yeah, no, that's fantastic. I mean, the pivot. Yeah, they didn't just do a little splashing on
the Talon color.
I
think that's the opposite.
Yeah, I mean that's.
You have to respect that with
totally.
the little bike riders and stuff on it.
I actually really like that.
Yeah, that reminds me of like almost like skateboard culture.
Yeah, for sure.
Where you take like what someone really creative would kind of do to their own bike and turn it into a model.
Right. Yeah, that's cool. I really like how these like Giant is doing this, where these like the trunnion metric shocks, adjusting the geometry, they're allowing you just to adjust the geometry. So then you with the same shock.
Right.
So just change the spacers in the shock, and then boom, you can now go to mixed wheel size.
Who's doing that?
Giant on this one.
That's how. That's where the flip chip is on the trunnion mount. Right.
I don't. Is it on the?
I'm pretty sure. I'm gonna look.
And the yeah, but what you do on the when you go to mixed wheel size is you take one of the spacers out and it gives it longer travel. And then so
you're talking about one of the internal spacers, right?
Correct.
Yeah, the flip chip is on where the seat stays meet the
rocker. So yeah, that's kind of what I was talking about. So you can run when you take the Trans Advance X and you turn it into Trans Advance X SX, it's got more travel, but you don't need a new shock. You just take out an internal spacer in the shock and then run the same shock. Admittedly, you can't run the 29 rear wheel at that point. At least they say you can't.
It's almost like they're just saying the quiet part out loud because everyone was doing this stuff before. I feel like
right. I like that they do that.
Yeah.
And you don't have to get creative with figuring out how to make sure you're not gonna totally demolish the seat
Right.
post.
Yeah.
You know, so
Yeah. Should we do some listener questions?
yeah, for sure. Let's jump onto that. Okay, so from Carbon Riser in Pennsylvania, at least that's PA, right? That's Pennsylvania.
I think so.
Okay, it's either that or Philadelphia.
Geology is my worst subject.
It's mine too.
Hey, I hope people got my intentional
Right,
that.
Exactly. What are your guys' latest thoughts about optimal stack height? There's a whole series of questions, so I'll just read them all.
Yeah.
And then, what are your guys' latest thoughts about optimal stack height? That's one. Best aluminum wheels currently? Question mark. Latest attitudes about coil versus air. And then he has some thoughts. Just generally speaking on all three, I have ridden coil before, but not on my 135 travel bike, and is considering it since they're already fairly stout, just looking to replace an old set of I-9 wheels that are 1,700 grams and don't want to pay the carbon dollars. Whew, so there's a lot in that. Optimal
Cool.
stack height.
Let's start with stack height.
Okay.
I really think that every rider has a saddle to handlebar top relationship that is best for them.
Yep, and that's why you're pedaling.
Yes, although I also think that while most of us, myself included, are going to heavily weight our setup towards that pedaling seated position.
Yep.
Because that's how we spend a lot of time on the bike.
Yep.
I also would argue that out of the saddle for cornering, most of us also have an optimal bar height, and that's relative to the bottom bracket.
Yep.
And I know on my setup, the optimal cornering height is a little bit lower than my optimal pedaling height.
Right.
And I go for optimal pedaling height.
Right.
But I will say, too, especially on very steep trails, having the bars a little higher kind of almost never hurts.
Right. Right.
One of the things I like least about, I run pretty tall bars for my saddle height and
Right.
for my height and
Yep.
all that. And it has to do, we've talked about it before, but it has to do with some hip and ankle flexion limitations that I have, and also just kind of liking to be sitting a little more upright.
Right.
One of the things I like better on my downhill bikes, I tend to like a straight downhill bike that I don't have a seated pedaling position.
Right.
And I do tend to run a little bit
taller.
lower bars.
Lower bars. Yep. No, you're right.
And part of that too is once you have a 203 fork, you're often just trying to get the bars back down.
Right.
But even just having my downhill bike next to my other bike, sometimes I would notice that my downhill
lower.
bike had just
Yeah.
lower to the ground.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the trip from corner to corner is really nice. Is shorter.
Right.
And
when you
less
have the lower
wonky.
stack height. Yep.
Less dangerous. Even.
Right.
Less of a potential whipping body slam.
Right.
Or and they call
Yeah.
that high siding, right?
Yeah.
So-
I'm fortunate I don't have the hip flexor and ankle flexor issues as you, so I run my bars pretty low.
Yeah.
And sometimes I would take the top, what do you call that? Collar off.
The dust cap on
dust
the
cap,
headset.
yep.
To get like an extra few millimeters lower.
Yep. So, so that's some good thoughts. Both fit, and sometimes you're going to make a little bit of you might set it either for descending or for pedaling, depending on what bike you're riding. Oftentimes it's going to be pedaling.
Right. That being said, I think a lot of riders find that they like a little bit taller bars than bikes are.
Yeah.
Especially taller riders, but not always just taller riders.
Right.
If your seat's way up in the air, you might need to get your bars up somewhere in that neighborhood too.
Right.
And I really think it's for each ride. Like I know I like my seat at about 69 centimeters, center of bottom bracket, top of saddle, and then I like my bars. And this is going to sound crazy to a lot of people who know bike fit, like almost 50 millimeters higher than that. That's a lot. Right. Most riders are most people with my ride fantasy and like my ride history have their bars on a mountain bike closer to level with their saddle, or maybe in some cases even below the saddle.
Right. Right. Wow. Yeah. But, I mean, it makes sense for your context.
Yep.
So why is it, do you think, that you look at some of these, like the cross country racers, and they're like, they've got their bars, like the stems are negative, and
Yeah. The further leaned over you are, the more you can, I think, activate your glutes and use big muscles to make a lot of power.
right?
And it's more aero.
Rip.
And
They're probably.
I think there's a little bit of a like tough isn't supposed to be comfortable attitude going on there too, or fast isn't supposed to be comfortable. Or
I don't know. I would say that they would whatever made them faster, they would be going with that.
I would agree with you if I didn't know some of the history around the same conversation with roadies and how it wasn't until road bike handlebars have gotten a lot higher in the last 15, 20 years.
Yeah, for sure.
And it wasn't until the mid 2000s that people started to really get anyone in the pro peloton to agree with this.
Yeah.
And it was very difficult to do.
Yeah.
And they got faster when they did it. And that was part of how they convinced them to do it.
Yeah.
And I actually think that mountain bikers don't do bike fit, so there's no one there proving it to these guys that they'd be faster with taller bars and talking them into it and everything. So I'm not so sure that I think they would do it if it made them faster, but first someone would have to prove to them that it made them faster. And if it's in their head that this makes them faster, then that might be difficult to prove to them. So I have no doubt that many pro mountain bikers have the optimal setup for them. I also would say though that some of them might benefit from a little higher bars.
Right. But I understand what you're saying. I feel like that the road, just looking at the bikes, I feel like the road bike, like difference between saddle and bars was greater, more extreme than the mountain.
I generally fit people the same.
Right. No, but I mean, like, if just looking at road bikes from a long time ago and then looking at mountain bikes now.
The original mountain bikes, they were trying to match the same numbers, and that was drop bars, 23 inches wide.
Right. Interesting.
Flat stem, like upside down stems on 26-inch wheels. We saw all that. Right.
Right.
So the original mountain bikes had very low handlebars.
Yeah. I mean, they still do. I mean, you look at them now and they do.
Not like that, though.
Yeah.
You can't go as low on a 29 as the original mountain bikes on 26
were. No, that's a good point. That's right.
And also, most of those 26ers had either no suspension fork or an 80-millimeter suspension fork. So that adds to stack as well. Yep. Because most cross-country race bikes these days have a 120 fork, I think, or at least a 110. Did we ever talk on the podcast about when I was at Bike Fit training up at Specialized and some of the upper Bike Fit people came and talked to us about their experience fitting the pro roadies?
No, I don't think so.
So here, it was, this was probably 2008, 2007, something like that. And this, I don't even remember. I remember that I recognized the name. I'm not a huge road racing fan. It was someone big enough that I recognized the name.
Right.
And it was one of Specialized top riders. And they were trying to give him a BG fit.
Right.
And they wanted to raise his bars. And he's like, "You're crazy." And his coach was like, "You can't raise his bars."
Right.
Like you guys, this is a professional rider. You guys, what are you guys talking? They scoffed at them, right? And kind of told them not to It was like when the TV executive tries to tell the comedian how to do the joke,
Sure. Right.
But they put the athlete in the wind tunnel, and they had him pedaling on the trainer, and they raised the bars, and he got more aero.
Right.
And that was the turning point in the This is a secondhand conversation and all that. I believed it. It sounded true. Yeah. It feels right from a bike fit perspective.
Right.
What happened was, with the bars as low as they were, he was pushing up a little bit. And when he got them up a little bit, he relaxed into it. Is kind of what the story was.
Right.
I don't know.
Well, whatever it is, you're right. I think it has changed. So I think that's a good conversation on optimal stack height.
I'll add one more thing about optimal stack height. for most people, the moment where you're coming across the top of your pedal stroke and your knee is at its highest point and your hip is at its most flexed point, many people that I've done bike fits on are just slightly exceeding the beginnings of their flexibility limitation in their hips there.
Right.
And you can go like 8 inches past the beginnings of your flexibility in your hips, and it feels great. It feels good.
Right.
It's not like, oh, I can't do that. It doesn't. There's no active negative feedback about it.
Sure.
But even if you go way past the beginnings of your hip flexion limitations,
Right.
But there is a point where there starts to be a little bit of resistance in your body going past a point.
Right.
And if you are going past that point in the top of your pedal stroke, you would probably be faster with taller bars.
Yeah.
And if you haven't assessed that with someone who knows how to assess it, there's a good chance that you are doing that.
Yeah.
And if you get lower back pain after your rides and hip pain in the front or back, like there's also a good chance you're doing that.
Yeah.
Like, and if it's just a little bit, here's where it gets interesting. I think for a sprint, because of the power you can make really, really leaned over,
Right.
there might be some gray area where you might want lower bars for a sprint than for an endurance ride. Because sprinting, just the brute power is more important than the slight resistance to going past your flexibility limitation.
Right.
But on a say 100-mile ride, and you're doing that thousands and thousands of times pushing past, and it does take calories and force and work. It takes work to push past your flexibility limitation. So you're adding work, and that's why I think what I think.
Awesome. Carbon riser, I think you got a good answer on that. Latest attitudes about coil.
Was the next one best aluminum wheels?
Oh, yeah, best aluminum wheels.
I think the general consensus at the path and probably at most shops is DT and just the right DT hub for your or DT rim for your application.
Right.
I also have if I was buying aluminum rims, I would also be interested in Spank Vibracore rims that have like it's like a foam inside them that reduces vibration.
Right.
And they're supposed to be really strong too. And
Right.
I haven't ridden them, but I like the story, and from what I've heard, it works.
Right.
And I also think that Crank Brothers has a really cool aluminum rim story with tuning for front and rear stiffness and everything.
Yep, for sure.
And kind of a lower profile, almost more like a Zip Moto story, even though it's not single wall.
Right.
And it's hard to argue with the replacement policy on reserves, which they do even on their aluminum rims, which is so a lot of good options. But as far as like dent resistant, wants to stay true, very high quality, and I know it, DT.
Yeah. And based on the type of ride or what I'm imagining Carbon Riser's ride fantasy is, I'm thinking maybe like the 511.
Yeah.
Because the next question is...
I think the 511's eyeletted, if I remember correctly, which is an added benefit, I think.
Yeah.
Cool. Next question.
Let's see. Coil versus air? That's interesting.
I haven't changed my thinking on this much. The trade-offs are pretty straightforward. I think, air is a little more maintenance and a little more stiction. Coil's a little bit heavier and a little bit harder to tune.
Right.
And then there's the whole spring rate curve thing. And I don't think that's better or worse, but I think it is good to understand it. And someone explained it in a way that I thought really did a good job of simplifying it.
Mm-hmm.
So, air springs tend to be kind of like progressive, linear, progressive. Coil springs tend to be kind of like linear, progressive, linear. Great. Someone translated that. I understand what that means.
Right.
But someone rephrased that to me in a way I was like, oh yeah, that's a lot kind of easier way to say it, which is air spring, hard, soft, hard. Yeah. As you go through the travel. Starts off hard compared to coil, gets a little bit soft, gets kind of soft in the mid-stroke, and then ramps up really hard at the end.
Yep.
Coil spring soft, hard, soft.
Right.
So very, very soft and plush in the early stroke. A little bit potentially more support or less or more firm than an air spring in the mid stroke.
Yep.
And then doesn't have that infinite ramp up at the end.
Right.
So it's way, way softer in the bottom end travel areas
Than air.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think those are interesting things to understand.
Yeah. And that's, I think that's right. On a 135 travel bike?
I think the really short travel bikes sometimes benefit more from hard, soft, hard than from soft, hard, soft.
Right.
And the reason being, you don't have a lot of travel to work with.
Yeah.
You don't want to bottom it out hard.
Right.
And so that really heavy bottom out resistance is helpful in those shorter travel bikes.
Yeah.
And it's difficult to make them feel plush, and you spend a lot of time in that mid travel zone on those. And so having it feel plush in the mid stroke is nice.
Right.
So I think shorter travel bikes, there's something to be said for air, but there's so many other trade-offs other than spring rate, and depending on the leverage rate curve of the bike, you might be able to handle the coil no problem without bottom out. So I wouldn't rule out coil for shorter travel. I really like the new Cane Creek shock is a really cool attempt to be the best of both worlds, where it's a coil shock with air bottom out.
Right. Oh, that's a great idea.
Yeah. I think especially for short travel, if you want that coil feel, that could be a good choice.
Yeah. Yeah.
You'll get the full coil feel, I think.
Yep.
And that might be the future.
Coil with air bottom out.
Yeah. I think that deep in the travel, air shocks tend to perform a little bit better than coil shocks.
Yeah. That's
as far as like just bottom out resistance.
Right.
And I think that nothing feels as plush like a coil on small bumps on top of the stroke. So, and that's partly because the air shock has the stiction of the air spring too.
Right.
So that's two things cause that. That's the leverage rate curve of the air shock and the stiction of the air spring.
Correct. All right, great. More questions?
Yeah.
All right. Let's see. Let's start with this one, or get back to this one. Assume you can't get any bike that the Path sells. Which bikes not sold at the Path would you ride, and why?
So I would have said a Crestline 180, but we just got some in.
Right.
I really would love to ride a Digit bike. So I rode a Digit a little bit. I'd like to ride one more, and I'd like to ride the new one and the old one some more.
Right. Along those lines, doesn't Trek have the Super Calibers?
Yeah.
Maybe a similar, not similar, but maybe it is similar. The shock is kind of hidden in the.
It uses a TQ motor, I think.
Maybe.
I did go. Yeah, I would be interested in riding that bike. I don't think that one's on my list.
No, the only reason the reason I'm saying that is I think it'd be interesting to ride. It's the Super Caliber. I think it'd just be interesting to ride. Let me see. I feel like it's a brand out there that that bike is just all out cross country, World Cup cross country. And I try to think about, you have like the Blur, the 429 SL, the Wheeze, that's true.
I think the OE's
is
there's a good argument for what Nino does on that bike.
That's true. That's true. No, Nino doesn't ride.
Or wait,
Shooter doesn't ride.
Oh no, that's the Scott Spark that he does on.
Yeah,
which is another one.
Yeah. So, anyways, that'd be kind of an interesting adventure for me.
Yeah.
So,
I would love to ride all of the Raj. I'd like to ride like a Raw Madonna or like a pole.
The pole, right.
I'd like to ride like a Starling.
Right.
Maybe even try out maybe a We Are One. There's a lot of cool little brands that we don't.
Gravity Gorilla.
They're gone too.
They're gone, but
that one didn't. That one, I was very interested in them as a brand and as a bike, but I'm not that excited to try one really.
Right.
And I think that their performance story didn't quite excite me.
Right.
I'd like to ride a mixed wheel turbo Levo, a Kenevo.
Okay, yeah, totally.
I want to experience that Bros motor. Even I could ride a Bros motor on a brand we do sell from Transition,
right?
But I haven't yet, and I want to.
Right.
And the transition the repeater powertrain with that Bros motor is 29 only.
Right.
So I'd like to try the mixed wheel Kenevo.
Yep.
With the Bros motor, and I think that would be a cool bike to try.
I agree. Yeah, that's so those are some bikes.
Yeah.
Let me see what else might be out there.
It's not a bike I could ever. It's not an option, but it is a bike that we don't sell. A bike that I'd be really, really keen to ride is the Honda downhill bike that Menard rode.
Oh my gosh!
And it's a brand we sell, but not a bike we sell. I'd love to ride some of the Pivot prototypes.
Right.
Yeah.
What's that? Gosh.
You know what else I'd like to ride?
Yep.
Not on any of our local trails. Like seriously, like I'm not just saying that because it's on the podcast.
Saran?
Yeah.
Oh man. Right.
That's not like the same as how I forgot the name of the trail we were riding earlier.
Right. Exactly.
I actually mean it.
Oh man. Gosh, what is the name of that brand? Not Eno.
Uno. I would
Uno.
love to ride some Uno bikes. Absolutely.
That's
high on my list. Good call.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. Yeah.
That was a good question. I liked that one.
Yeah, for sure. All right, let's see. Let's see some other thoughts. Let's see. How about any thoughts on mulleting the Santa Cruz Mega Tower V2? I bought mine, this is from Eric H. I bought mine early on before the Nomad. I'm regularly swapping from my mullet e-bike, and this makes the Mega feel really high, so I'd be interested to know if you feel like it would be detrimental effect on the Geo.
I think you should try it. I mulleted my V1 Mega Tower, which is quite similar to the V2 Mega Tower.
Yep.
I traveled with that bike with both wheel sizes and went back and forth, and it was awesome.
Yeah.
It was awesome.
Yeah, I mean, you can always just try it.
I sometimes miss that bike. I had that Fry Sauce Mega Tower V1.
Yeah,
that was a really
sure.
cool, distinctive color,
Yeah.
and it was a good bike to mixed wheel, and it was good. I had fun on that bike at Oaks, and I had fun on that bike at the bike park. And with the mixed wheel, it was so good at the bike park.
Right. Every time I have Fry Sauce, I think about that bike actually.
But you know what trips me out is I think I had a Fox 36 on that bike.
Oh my gosh!
Because I think that was before the Fox 38.
That's right.
And that doesn't feel that long ago to me.
Yeah.
And it's a real testament to like where bikes are and where they've come.
Yeah.
Okay. Like Enduro, the Fox 36 was the Enduro fork.
Yeah.
And the Lyric was the other Enduro fork.
Yeah.
And now those are really considered like all mountain.
Trail, yeah. Sheesh.
And it's helped me understand the all mountain category now too. Now that there's because before I was like, there's not space in between these two things.
Now
like,
I think there is.
Yeah.
Fantastic. One last listener question, maybe?
Yeah.
Okay. Alex F. He says, thanks for the fork conversation in the last episode. You're welcome. You get a little bit more fork conversation here. I've got another one for you too. What's the deal with the SRAM DB8 brakes? There's almost no reviews out there, but on the face of it, they seem like a great budget option that could be lower maintenance due to the use of mineral oil. Any experience, positive and negative? Otherwise, thoughts would be interesting.
I have very little experience, but in general, they seem pretty solid.
Yeah.
Like we've touched them a little bit. We've worked on them a little bit.
Did those
They're not on a lot of bikes that we sell.
Did those come out before the Havens?
The Mavens, they did.
Scooters.
Yeah, they did.
I wonder if that was like a a test bed, a production level test bed going to Mineral.
Maybe, right?
So, yeah. If you haven't seen a whole bunch of them coming back to the shop, that's maybe a good testament. So, hey, everyone, Frank, Alex, Eric, everyone else, Drew, thanks for all your questions.
Yeah, huge thanks.
Yeah, for sure.
All right. I think that's a show.
I think it is.
Thanks, Auk. Thanks, Jake. Thanks to all the listeners, and huge thanks to all the coworkers here at The Path and all the riders who come in and shop at The Path and who order from us from all over the United States. And let's all remember to love the bike we ride.